got to know your area. You got to know what you're getting yourself into, and you got to plan your time accordingly. I mean, you figure $1,000, okay. Well, you still have 2-day drive out if you're just driving straight, two-day drive back. You're at 4 days already, so you got to figure in how many days you're going to be able to hunt. Are you going to spend a day hiking into where you're going to hunt? Mm-hmm. If you get something on the ground, how long is it going to take you to get it back out? I mean, I think that's like the extra cost that a lot of people don't mention when they're like, oh yeah, it's only $1,000, $2,000. Yeah, but you're also taking a week and a half out if you don't live in that area, mm-hmm. which is kind of why Pennsylvania was like a little bit more of attractive of a place to apply and gain points, because that's a 4-hour or 5-hour drive instead of a 25-hour drive. Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I always carry a knife. It doesn't matter what the situation is, I'm always reaching for a blade. Whether I'm out hunting in the backwoods, fishing on lakes and rivers, or simply cutting rope at camp. And when I need a tool, I want something that's quality, durable, and handmade right here in the USA. I know that's something you're looking for as well, so go to maloneknives.com and get yourself something that's going to last and look damn good too. This is the Aptitude Outdoors podcast, where we interview travelers, explorers, and outdoorsmen and women to bring you the best tips and stories from around the world. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Aptitude Outdoors podcast. Thanks for tuning back in today. I have a very special guest, the one and only Mr. Chad Gault.
Thanks for having me, I guess.
You're welcome.
Is this punishment?
Yeah, you are in trouble. This is what happens when you become friends with me. You get sucked into coming on the podcast. So I'm sorry about that.
I needed a warning ahead of time.
But we just got back from the shooting range. That was pretty dope. We're out there shooting guns. What all did you bring today?
300 Win Mag, muzzleloader, 6.5 Grendel.
We were having fun out there.
Yeah. Inconsistent 22.
No, that was me.
Oh,
that was what I brought. So yeah, man. So, I don't know much about your history. How did you get into hunting? Because we all have our story where it began. Mine is not that long ago, but you've done this for a while.
For a while. It's my dad's fault. Mm-hmm. Way back when his brothers, they'd all go hunting on, rabbits, squirrels, whatever. They started trapping. That kind of thing. But, every Thanksgiving, rabbit hunting on Thanksgiving, that's all we did. And so.
Like what age?
I think I started toting a Red Ryder around 8 and played dog more than anything else. I mean, for real, it was busting brush and taking rabbits out of the worst possible place you can imagine because they didn't want to. And then it was my turn to clean them, and
it's a good lesson, though.
Yeah. I think I got my first shotgun at like 12, 13, whenever I could take hunter safety. And then it was off to the races.
So you've done a lot of various types of hunting, but you strike me as a duck hunter. It seems like that's your favorite thing. I don't know if that's a phase or if
that's the current fixation.
Yeah.
If anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's all about waterfowl. But for a while there was all whitetail.
Whitetail are a pain in the ass.
They're annoying.
They
do not cooperate. But it's one of those things, like once you figure it out, then there's not as much of a challenge anymore. So, it becomes, we'll take care of it during gun season, just get it done and out of the way, and then go swimming and, filling the waders up, falling in creeks.
Well, duck hunting is I never thought I'd be able to duck hunt. Everybody always told me how expensive it was.
There's a barrier to entry, yeah.
Yeah, and it was pretty steep. But my thing is kind of aside from a boat,
right,
the barrier isn't as high as I thought it was.
It's not really. I mean, you're grabbing decoys off Facebook Marketplace, and people are always upgrading their gear, selling their ex-husband's stuff, So
probably a lot of ex-husbands do to duck hunting.
True. I mean, it's one of those things, you're out there at 4 a.m. and not home when everybody's waking up and taking care of chores. So.
Well, what did you get? What was the path for you to get into duck hunting? Because as someone it just seems intimidating. It seems like a big ordeal when in reality it really isn't. It's just
it was an accident. Honestly. Yeah. They started doing the lotteries online for, waterfowl blinds and, limited entry hunts and stuff like that. Me and my buddy had been entering every year, and then all of a sudden I got a limited blind at Delaware, down near Columbus. And you had to have a boat in order to get it. So we got on Craigslist, and I found a $400 boat up in Michigan, and it was baby blue with a bright white motor. And
just like what ducks like to see.
Exactly. So we drove up there with his dad's beat up F-150 and grabbed that boat. And the next day drove down to Delaware and got our blind and learned real quickly that you need to test some things out before you put a boat on the water. Make sure it runs, make sure the trolling motor doesn't catch on fire.
The basics.
Basic common sense stuff that you really only learn after tugging on a 2-stroke motor for an hour floating in the middle of a high power, Bass Lake. Yeah. So that was our intro to duck hunting, followed by picking up decoys and, learning how to call from YouTube.
Yeah.
Because there was not really any mentor. It was just, we're going to do this because we paid $3 for a lottery. So, let's dump some more money into it.
I feel like that's what hunting is, though, is like just randomly falling into shit with other people. And
totally.
Like, because the first time I went duck hunting was this year.
Mm-hmm.
And the second time I went duck hunting was with you at McGee Marsh. Is it McGee?
I think we went to the river first.
Oh, yeah, we did. We went on the Maumee River. Dude, that was awesome.
Yeah, but it was 80 degrees out. So.
It was so hot. The waders were like melting me.
Right.
It was cold in the morning, hot as hell when we got off the water. But that was the first time it occurred to me that you could kayak and duck hunt. It never had crossed my mind. I was like, I have a kayak. Why am I not using this for hunting instead of just
to
fishing?
access?
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to put in. It's a little intimidating, paddling through the dark because you don't really know if that's safe or not. But,
Generally in the islands of the Maumee, it's fairly safe.
Yeah.
It's deep water, not moving too fast.
We had buddies and headlamps, so.
Yeah.
What else perfectly fine.
And that was the second time I ever went duck hunting. We did see some ducks, but not a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you can always get those first light ducks, the ones that just, as soon as it's legal shooting light, come buzzing in that you don't anticipate, didn't call to. They just decided, as good a time as any, we might as well just fly around and harass these guys. So,
well, I've always been kind of like drawn to the water. Like it's weird because I don't like to go to like the ocean and swim and like your traditional sense of like people
beaches
that like
are boring.
Yeah, it's boring. Like I'll fish. I'll go to the ocean and fish.
Yeah, totally.
But like I think I don't know what it is about duck hunting specifically, but it's just like after 5 or 6 years of attempting to deer hunt, I'm still terrible at it. Like I'm not very good at it. I still don't have
Nobody's
a deer this
really
year.
good at it. They just get lucky.
Yeah. But like, I like deer hunting. I like being out in the woods, but it's just a whole different ball game being out when the sun comes up and you're looking over like a giant marsh and there's thousands of ducks flying around and there's like, it's just a different feel than deer hunting because it's
for sure.
Deer hunting is very like it's a lot of solitude. You're sitting in a blind or in a tree stand by yourself.
Yeah.
It's cold. There's nothing to take your mind off. Duck hunting's similar. It's cold.
There's a certain level of misery. Yeah,
but you have people there with you. You can bullshit. You can take your mind off how cold your feet are.
Yep.
That's the appeal, I think.
No, totally. There's a community aspect of it. I mean, you can go solo, but that's not nearly as fun. I mean, the couple times I've decided, you know what? I don't care if anybody comes with me. I'm going out. I mean, you're setting decoys by yourself. You're dragging the boat in by yourself. You're sitting there calling by yourself. No matter how many ducks you try and sound like, it's, that one lonely mallard and they come flying around and see 40 sitting there. It doesn't sell it,
Well, I was just thinking about when the last time we went duck hunting, we were at McGee Marsh.
Right.
And we got there, and it was 5:30 in the morning?
Yeah.
Ish.
Ish.
And we sit
get to the boat ramp and all these guys drive in, and then we see them turn around and leave, and we're like,
call it.
what are we doing? So we toughed it out, and I actually think it was awesome.
Oh, it was a good time.
Breaking, like, these dudes pulled up, and it was like seeing who would go first into the water.
It was like, who can we trick to go first? You got the one poor kayaker who he wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And, you know, we pull in behind him, and he's like, oh, I'm so glad to see you guys. This is great. And we're like, yeah, it's awesome. And then, you know, the guys with the big boat come in and, you know, made a path for all of us. That was a lifesaver.
Yeah, and I mean that was kind of like the cool thing I think about duck hunting is it's kind of an adventure because like for me, deer hunting has been a lot of hunting the same piece of property over and over. It's like the same thing. Like you're always going to the same spot. You're sitting in the same stand. You're sitting in the same blind.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the fact though, like the trick to being successful at deer hunting is patterning. You know, figuring out what they're going to do when they're going to do it, and then putting yourself in the right place at the right time. They always talk about, you know, finding the X with the ducks, but they're migrating, you know, especially like where we're at. They're coming across the lake. They're headed south. They're headed someplace safe. So they're on the move. And they might hang out for a couple days, maybe a week, but as soon as the weather turns, you know, off they go again.
Well, I think a lot of the thing that dissuades people from maybe continuing to hunt after a while is like, I wouldn't say for me I've had a very successful hunting season, but I think it's a cumulative thing over years and years of learning how to, you have to have the patience and the will to just go and watch and sit and understand that you're not going to be successful a majority of the time.
Yeah.
Because I think how many times have we gone out this year together, you and I? At least 4. With the Maumee, we went to the marsh twice, and then we went and sat on some public or private access land. What is it? The OLHAP program. We went and duck hunted out
access
there.
program. Yeah.
So we'll talk about that too. But like, I think we both got 2 ducks maybe so far.
I think I've only got 3 this season. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the same day, people are out there getting limits. And we're like, so it's a matter of like being patient and knowing that day will come for you.
Right.
Honestly, how much do you think of that is right place, right time, or versus skill?
Right now, I want to say that it's all about being in the right place at the right time. You know, it has nothing to do with skill. But in all honesty, I mean, you know, I've been duck hunting for 5 years. So there's guys out there that, you know, they've been doing it their whole lives. And when you listen to them call, it's like, you know what you're doing. And I sound in distress this whole time. So, yeah, I think it's a combination of the two, you know, knowing where to put yourself and then knowing what to do once you're in the right spot, you know, because, you know, we'll call in, you know, 2s and 3s. We can do that all day, but you see those big flocks flying overhead and not a single one peels our way because we're obviously doing something. It's just not right. So.
It's usually my fault because I'll try and blow like a goose call or something and it sounds like they're dying.
No. Yeah, exactly. It's just, every duck sounds different. We'll just tell ourselves that.
That's the excuse I'm going to go with. I think a lot of the thing too is you have to, especially with duck calling, that's very intimidating for a lot of people because that's like with deer calling, I've never really done deer calling. I've mostly just sat and watched deer and kind of like figured out, especially during the rut. I mean, a buck's going to come check scrapes and things that it might always be the same. The same direction or whatever. But generally within a day or two, they're going to be kind of coming around the same area from what I've noticed. Like this year, for instance, the buck that I saw a few times, it was like religiously every other day he was coming to the spot, but he'd like go a little further south one day where I wasn't in my blind or too far this way and I couldn't shoot him. So it was like frustrating like that. But with duck hunting, it's like, I don't know. They're like you said, they're migrating and they're just like going wherever they. So how do you don't really pattern that, but like learning how to call, I think is intimidating because like with deer, I have calls, I just don't use them. But with a duck, it's kind of like a vital part of duck hunting. Yeah,
to a certain extent. I mean, at a certain point, all those resident ducks, they've seen it all, they've heard it all. You know, and when they decide it's time to move, then you get the fresh ones coming in. But, you know, it sounds weird because, you know, we're basically on the north coast, but, you know, they still come all the way down from Canada. They've seen, heard, been shot at. You know, you kind of have to have your stuff dialed in order to trick them still.
Well, it's kind of frustrating too because you see all that stuff on Instagram, like down south or something.
Right.
And there's like just thousands of ducks.
Right.
And I've never experienced that. I think the closest thing was the last time we went out. Is that
when we were at the marsh.
Huge flock flying.
I mean, there were a couple thousand easily.
Yeah,
but
they weren't coming in where we were.
They were 500 feet up, and they had no intention to stop until they hit the lake.
And they flew in from. I mean, we watched them fly in from probably a mile away at least.
Yeah, probably easily.
I still think we should have called them in, but
yeah, but that wasn't our choice.
I was asked recently, what does the outdoors mean to you? To me, the outdoors is everything. It's like the growth model that consumes the entrepreneur or the unending drive that pushes the athlete to outperform the competition. It's the greatest teacher of life lessons, whether it be learning to accept that most things are out of your control or that the trees, the rivers, the mountains move along whether you're there or not. It's the motivator that keeps me accountable to my physical and mental health, because if I don't have the strength and conditioning to do the things that I enjoy outdoors, whether they be hunting, fishing, backpacking, adventure racing, or tackling some long distance adventures, then everything becomes exponentially more difficult. Most importantly, the outdoors allows me to be, to think, to exist in the same plane that the majority of the natural world still exists in, to break the bonds from what we call civilization. The outdoors is freedom, a place where life and death are one and the same, the prime example of what it means to exist. In my mind, there's no separation. The outdoors simply is, as all things should be, perfection in its most chaotic form. The outdoors is you, it's me, it's all of us.
So, like, with duck hunting, what is the appeal to you? Because I already said what my appeal was to it that I like about it, but
it's just something different every day. I mean, you never really know what you're going to get yourself into. I mean, you know, the first season I really went, you know, I pretty much went to Delaware. I had my designated spot. My buddy and I built a blind there that we knew was going to be temporary, but you know, we went all out, halted across the lake, and that's where we were going to hunt. That's just where it was going to be. So that next season where we kind of had to branch out and go exploring a little bit, you know, we'd go check out a new lake, someplace we hadn't been before that, you know, we could get into. I think Lake Lasuan was like our most popular destination that year. Just hitting different parts of the main lake every single time we went out. Just see, we saw ducks over here that time. Let's go sit up there next time. And they decided they wanted to go to the other side of the lake, you know, just back and forth until we kind of locked that down. But I mean, every time it's just something a little bit different. You know, you got different groups coming in, you got other hunters putting on pressure, which sometimes helps. It's just, I don't know. It's a new adventure each time.
I think some of the stuff that kind of impressed me the most was the variety of different species of ducks that come through where we're at.
Yeah.
Because honestly, unless you're out there watching specifically or doing photography or hunting, I don't think an average person would realize how many different ducks. Because
it's crazy.
I shot a gadwall the time I went out with you.
Right.
And I was like, I don't even know what this is. To be completely honest with you, a duck's a duck.
It looks like a duck, yeah.
If they're flying by. But I mean, there's so many types. There's there's gadwalls, pintails, mallards, teal.
Got wood ducks. I mean, there's so many different species, especially like where we're at too.
Mm-hmm. I
mean, you got ones coming in from the north. You got your teal and everything that start off around here, and it's just, you know, it's a mixed bag.
Well, that's one of the things that I talk about on this show a lot too, is like, I don't think people, unless they're hunting or hunters, they don't realize how like good this area is. I mean, especially like we have That's like a world-class duck hunting marshes up here.
That's what they say. I just don't see the ducks there.
Well, I mean, what's the Winus Duck Hunting Club is like one of the Winus Point Marsh Service, like one of the oldest duck hunting clubs in America, like ever.
You've got Ottawa, Sandusky, they all have their own clubs. And
yeah. I mean, that's saying a lot. I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things that's like, do I actually suck or is this just really that hard? Because the thing is like that I notice is that everyone online makes it look so easy. And I almost feel like a fraud a lot of the time because I'm like, I hunt more than anybody I know. Maybe you hunt just as much or more than me.
You always got to remember, like, they're not showing you their failures, you know?
Yeah.
How many days did they go out? You know, how do they cleverly edit that clip to make it look like it was just nonstop? Oh, we limited out by 7 a.m. Sun didn't rise till 6 or 7:30, you know? How'd you do that? It is what it is. Like,
well, that's another thing too that gets, I think, a lot of people dissuaded because they think it's going to be like that when they go out. And it's like, from experience, I know it's not like that often. I mean, I've gone out with a ton this year. I've hunted more this year than I've ever hunted, but I've also hunted a wider variety of things than like just deer hunting or
not just specializing.
But like I've had a wide array of different hunting experiences this year. And I just think it's hard, especially like wildlife populations aren't where they historically were a long time ago and stuff like that. Yeah. Or a lot of areas aren't as, you know, ecologically rich as they used to be, especially up here. Like the marshes aren't actually like connected to the lake anymore. They've got like big walls.
They've got all the dikes and yeah.
So it's not like a true marsh because the lake
half the marsh right now. I mean, the water level's so low that, I mean, the last time we were out there, you could walk across it without getting your feet wet, you know, just on the one half because they weren't letting water in because they didn't have it, they said. So
the first time we went out to McGee Marsh was hilarious.
That was great. It worked out really well from the get-go.
Well, I mean, it wasn't that bad, but I like just wasn't expecting to have to walk like a quarter mile through ankle, waist, knee-deep mud. Yeah. For
the beauty of the old marsh. You just never know how deep that water really is.
But the marsh is like a magical place though. Like you don't get that very often unless you're in it like that, because I've been to that marsh a million times. I've been to McGee Marsh for like the biggest week in American birding and stuff like that, but like never been in the marsh. It's a whole different world once you're in it.
It's different being part of it versus just looking at it from the walkway. You know, it has a different smell when you're waist deep.
I always imagine that scene from Lord of the Rings where they look down, there's like all the dead bodies under the marsh. That's what every time like the sun comes up and I'm like, oh geez, man.
What's down there?
With another thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately too with all types of hunting, but duck hunting specifically, like how on a realistic level, how important do you think decoys are, like with the way that they're painted and the way that they look?
After your spray paint adventure? Is that what you're wondering?
I'm just curious what your thoughts are, because like I see decoys that are $100 for 4. I see decoys that are $35 for 6. I see decoys that are 12 decoys for $75.
Right.
I see decoys on Craigslist. I see decoys on Facebook. Some are, I got decoys above my head right here. They're, God only knows how old. It's like, do you think a duck really flying in at 40 miles an hour can really distinguish that much? Or do you think it's just like color wise and like...
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously a lot of it's marketing. I mean...
Just like fishing lures.
Right. Yeah. Fish are going to bite what you put in their face, especially if it's sparkly and, fish shaped. But yeah, I don't want to say one way or another because, I'm guilty as anyone else is of, I'm going to spend an extra $40 on these because they have flocked heads and they look feathery. But yeah, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it's more important that there's something that looks like it is a duck down there. Mm-hmm. And if it looks like a duck, it sounds like a duck, it's probably ducks. So that's what's going to bring them in. I mean, I have friends who literally have hand-carved wood blocks. And they just kill it, Mm-hmm. They're the guys filling the feed on Instagram every weekend where, he's out there with his kid and, they got 5 or 6 sitting there and next week they have 2 or 3 and it's, hand-carved decoys made out of 2x4s and acrylic paint and they do the job.
Yeah.
But
Well, my thought is like, especially like in daylight, I think it might make a difference. I don't have any experience because this is my first year ever duck hunting, so I'm just talking out of my ass. But that's the beauty of having your own show is you can say stupid shit and then people can be mad at you for it. But like,
that's what the comment section's for.
A lot of the time when the ducks do actually fly in and they're aggressive, from what I've seen this year, is like right at sunlight.
Yeah.
Right first thing in the morning. And the decoys to me just look black on the water. Yeah. So it's like, are they actually keying in on a lot of this stuff, or are they like, hey, there's ducks there?
Yeah, I think it's more the shape, That's why I've got, a dozen black decoys. Mm-hmm. And I painted the bills yellow because it made me feel better, and I had yellow paint. But, I mean, I think they see those from further away, and when they come in, they're like, this still looks like a duck. It's dark. I know their vision's great, but I don't think they're looking at feather detail, trying to figure out, is that blue feather right on the tip of his wing, or is it a little closer to... Yeah, they don't care.
I was actually surprised how easy it was to repaint the decoys, because I'm like not an artsy person in any way, shape, or form. They look good. They're just like, they're not that many colors, I think, is the key to it. Like they're just like 3 or 4 colors, and there's just a few very obvious bright sections on them that I think would probably be the important part. But like just painting the decoys was kind of fun because it's still like part of the realm of outdoor stuff that I like to do. But it was like something to do at night when you can't hunt anymore, or you're tired of watching YouTube videos on how to do duck calls.
Kind of like off-season mentality, mid-season. Why not? This might work, might help.
Well, the cool thing about that I've realized is that like you can there around here. I mean, even with the nasty winters and stuff, today's like 40 degrees out. It's almost Christmas, so whatever. Right. But with like the weather and the seasons, there's so much to do around here for hunting and fishing that I mean, I don't really have to go anywhere else. I would say, I don't know if I just have more success fishing than I do with hunting. And I don't know if it's because inherently fishing's not as difficult. It's still difficult. Right. You still have to know a lot about like what fish do. But I don't know. I don't find it as frustrating as hunting. I mean, I've gotten skunked many times fishing, obviously. But
I don't know. I don't really fish once it gets cold. I know you're trying to talk me into that hard water fishing, but
you're going. I won't kill you.
I'm wearing my life jacket. I don't care.
That's fair. That's fair.
I don't care. I'll wear it.
If the ice is 2 foot thick, you're not going anywhere. Well, what do you do during the winter then? Fix guns?
Fix guns, play in the basement, get in trouble, No, a lot of times it's, I like to wait until it's cold, really, to get out there. Like I haven't gone squirrel hunting, well, except once with you and Parker the other day. Yeah, didn't see any squirrels.
Bummer.
You only see squirrels when you're deer hunting. This is
very true.
This is the truth. But I started out with rabbit hunting, and I don't go back to rabbit hunting until, December at least. I don't know why. It's not as many fleas. Yeah. Not as itchy after you clean them, but I don't know. I think being able to see the tracks, figure out where they're actually hiding, setting off.
Where do you rabbit hunt around here?
Go back to my grandparents.
Oh, okay.
Rabbit hunt there, usually once a season.
Just out in the woods, or?
Yeah. I mean, I think I saw just as many rabbit as we saw deer that day.
0?
Well, you got to pay attention. You got to get off the TikToks.
Sorry.
Yeah. No.
Not going to happen. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, we go to the state forest. There's bunnies hiding in there, and we could go up to the Mallard Club even and walk around through there. There's plenty of rabbits up there. Yeah, anywhere it's brushy, anywhere there's, that overhanging cover where the birds can't get to them as easy, and places the coyotes don't want to go. There's going to be rabbits in there. But
I was coming back from Southern Ohio last weekend, and that was the first time I've ever seen a coyote just standing on the side of the road.
Oh, really?
I was like, that's like a really small deer. And then we drove by and I was like, that's a really big coyote.
Right.
It's weird because coyotes are very common around here, but they're very elusive.
Right.
Like I hardly ever see them.
catch them on trail cameras and the side of the turnpike.
Yeah.
They just hang out, right off the side of the road. People go by 80 miles an hour, and they're just standing there waiting their turn to cross.
I think I've only seen coyotes in the wild 3 times.
Yeah.
And that counting the one that I just saw. The only other time is I was hunting on Metro Parks Lottery property, and I saw all these deer behind me like 200 yards away through the woods, just hauling ass.
Getting out of Dodge.
And I'm like, what are they running from? I thought maybe like somebody walked in the woods and scared them or something, or a neighbor fired up a lawnmower. I don't know what they would have been doing. It was early season, and then I see this little coyote just trotting after him. I was like, that is a ballsy coyote.
Getting dinner one way or the other, yeah.
Yeah. And then I think the only other time I saw one was just a tail. I was like trail running or something, and I saw just a tail, big bushy tail slink out there. But I would think as much as I sit in the woods and how many coyote tracks are around, I would see them more often. But
I think they're just really tuned in to what's going on around them. I mean, I think they smell you before they see you, and they know you're trouble. I've seen a couple times out in Pennsylvania, but at the same time, I've got hundreds of pictures of them on a trail camera. Haven't even got to pull my phone out to take a snapshot, one in person, just because they're here, they're gone.
So what's the big difference between hunting in Ohio versus Pennsylvania? Because they're like the neighbor to the east. It's only like a 3-4 hour drive to get to Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I know the laws are a lot different. And
the laws are a lot different, but I think the main difference is, especially where we're at, we don't have hills. We have grades, but we don't have hills. But out there, we're kind of in the Pennsylvania wilds area where I hunt. So up and down, the 200 acres is kind of smoothed out, but you get that altitude difference. The terrain's a lot different. It's real rocky, and then thick, bushy hemlocks, and just dense woods. We're a lot more out here. We got the oaks, and everything's a little bit more open at forest level. But the deer density is a lot higher out there, I've noticed. Like even in the more, you get a little closer to suburbia, we still see so many more deer, even like traveling for work and whatnot. We see deer all the time out there. And, you might see them on the edge of a cornfield around here, but I think the density is a lot higher, the population. But at the same time, you got a lot smaller bucks as far as like antler mass and whatnot goes. But
well, you were explaining to me one time about how the system works out there. Like what was that? What does that look like for, like, say I wanted to go hunt Pennsylvania? What does that system look like to be able to get a license and a tag? And
it's real easy to get a license and a tag, but it's when you buy your out-of-state license, you're gonna get a fall and spring turkey permit, and you're gonna get an antler tag, and that's like good for any antlered deer. There's restrictions. And you can also use that for flintlock season. Usually flintlocks, I think it's after Christmas.
Is that separate from muzzleloader?
It is.
Okay.
Muzzleloader in the WMA, the management unit I hunt, is does only, or antlerless only. It's a button buck, and you can't tell. It's a scolding at best. But yeah, they have an antler restriction out there where it's the majority of the state is 3 up. So 2 points, and then at least an inch of a brow tine, or three on the main. And then that's their way of keeping deer growing bigger.
We don't have restrictions like that here in Ohio, do we?
No. It's 1 buck per season here. I think 5 deer statewide. I might be wrong on that, but yeah, I think it's.
I don't remember. Yeah,
I think it's 5 total. But
I've never had to worry about that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, first world problem, maybe. Second.
I'm usually just good with 1 if I can get it.
Yeah, just put something in the freezer. But yeah, it's their way of helping grow bigger deer. But at the same time, I think it's just an opinion. Like it really inhibits people. That, and you actually have a draw system, I guess, for antlerless tags, where there's a limited number doe tags per unit. And up until this year, you had to actually mail in your application in order to get a tag. And, residents get that first week off to themselves. Non-residents can come in the second week. Then there's a second round for everybody. And if there's anything left, there's over the counter. But, literally am dropping an application in the mail on the Wednesday before it becomes available for non-residents, just at a chance of getting one. And yeah, they're usually sold out after 1 or 2 rounds. There's a few management units more towards central and northern where there's a few more available tags, but it's not always available for everyone. And they adjust the numbers every year too. So I think it was down 3,000 deer in our WMA this year. And tags weren't even available for second round for non-residents.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you said you also are getting close to being able to have like an elk tag?
Potentially. So like,
is that Pennsylvania?
Yeah, Pennsylvania and Montana pretty much apply for a tag every year, and then you get a point. Every state's a little bit different. I know Montana has a bonus point and a preference point system, and there's almost always over-the-counter tags available out there, but they're not always in the most desirable places. That's like a once-in-a-lifetime trip for some people. So,
that's talking to you and our friend Parker on our drive back from deer hunting 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
I was kind of interested in that elk hunting, in the fact that like you can do it yourself, because it's another thing. Like with duck hunting, it's always been told it's like prohibitively expensive. It's even to do it yourself, but like after talking to you guys, like it kind of doesn't seem that way. I guess it depends on what you consider prohibitively expensive, but like one of my buddies was talking, he's like, oh, it would cost like $1,000 to go out there and do that. I was like, but for an elk hunt, that's like fairly reasonable. I feel like that's not insane.
The travel and everything.
Yeah. You just got to really study your shit.
Yeah, you got to know your area. You got to know what you're getting yourself into, and you got to plan your time accordingly. I mean, you figure $1,000, okay. Well, you still have 2J drive out if you're just driving straight, 2-day drive back. You're at 4 days already, so you got to figure in how many days you're going to be able to hunt. Are you going to spend a day hiking into where you're going to hunt? If you get something on the ground, how long is it going to take you to get it back out? I mean, I think that's like the extra cost that a lot of people don't mention when they're like, oh yeah, it's only $1,000, $2,000. Yeah, but you're also taking a week and a half out if you don't live in that area, which is kind of why Pennsylvania was like a little bit more of attractive of a place to apply and gain points, because that's a 4-hour or 5-hour drive instead of a 25-hour drive. Yeah.
I just can't imagine the density of elk is that high in Pennsylvania. I could be completely wrong, but I didn't know that there were elk in Pennsylvania until you guys said that.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, the state obviously manages the population really well, and they only award as many tags as you could potentially take out in a season and not do damage to the herd. But there's a webcam that you can actually go onto the Game Commission's website, and you can watch elk because they have cameras set up in the high density areas, and I don't think they allow you to like set up a bipod and hunt from where that camera's at. But yeah, in the surrounding counties and the areas, those forests, there's decent sized population. I mean, I think it's like close to 600 or 700 permits a year.
Wow,
that they're issuing. I may be wrong on that.
It's so weird because I do a lot of like outdoors reading and stuff, and it just never occurred to me. Like I know they're up in northern Michigan and stuff.
Yeah, there's population up there.
I've never I know there's some in like the southern states too, like I think of like North Carolina and stuff, like all over the South.
I know Kentucky,
but like it just never occurred to me a Midwest elk hunt.
It's gonna bother me now. I'm
That's
sorry.
just blows my mind. Like obviously there's none in Ohio, or I feel like I would have known about that. But like every state surrounding us has elk, which is strange. Why is Ohio such a dead zone?
I think it has a lot to do with like population density, as far as we don't really have that many. I mean, think about it. How many national forests do we have here in the state? The Wayne and a couple refuges. And those are a couple thousand acres.
Yeah, Maumee State Forest is the closest to us.
Right. How many? How many elk could 10 acres of Maumee State Forest support?
One.
Half of one. Yeah.
Do you ever hunt, or have you ever hunted anything like deer in Maumee State Forest? Because I don't know many people who do. Everybody seems terrified to do it.
Yeah, I went out the first season I started bow hunting again, I went out to the state forest and, I saw a few does here and there, but I also saw more hunters in that area than I saw deer all season long. And then I went out one day for the bonus gun season, and that was an adventure,
That's what I've heard from every single person.
I mean, I was up in the tree at 5 o'clock thinking, all right, I got 2.5 hours to sunrise. In this spot all by myself, 15 minutes after the sun come up, somebody starts climbing a tree 10 yards behind me, and whistled at the guy, and he just waved and kept on climbing because it is what it is.
Well, that's the thing is like with when people talk about public land, like that's the only public land relatively close to here. I mean, there's like Maumee State Park and stuff where you can hunt deer and stuff like that. But I mean, as far as like accessible public land in this Toledo area generally, that's about it.
Yeah, a lot of people overlook like the smaller patches, like the wildlife production areas. They're not. If you get on X and you really start grinding through, you can find little parcels, right off a highway or tucked around. There's over by the airport. There's 5 acres just off by itself. There's no signage or anything except the little yellow placards. But if you didn't drive by it or you didn't happen to find that little green spot, you never know it's there.
Yeah.
But I think those little spots are like what people don't think about, and the people that know about them kind of consider them their spots. So they kind of stake them out, and you pull up to 5 acres right outside of city limits, you see one car, you're not going to waste your time walking through there. I mean, I'm not going to. I don't want to ruin somebody else's day. But obviously there's people who have just as much right to be there as you, and they've got no qualms sitting underneath you while you're up in the tree. So it is what it is.
Some of the Wood County parks allow hunting, but I went out there and me and my friend spent, I want to say 4 or 5 hours scouting this place. And it was like just no sign. Like really? I was shocked of how little sign there was. And we were going like following deer trails. We like skirted the whole edge of this property and we saw one scrape, no rubs at all from what I remember, and a shitload of deer stands. Yeah. And it was permit only, so you can only go in there X many people per day for the days they allow you to operate. And it's real cheap. It's like $5 for a permit or $10 or something. You got to fill out some paperwork, but I don't know. I always am trying to find new places to hunt around here, but it's just like, they're hard to find. Unless you really are doing some homework. Like,
and then again, I think it's like right place at the right time too, The one day of the bonus gun season I went out to the state forest, I heard 5-6 shots right at daybreak and nothing the rest of the day. And I called it quits. Probably 10 minutes till sundown is when I decided to climb down. And, I hadn't heard shots for hours, but there's one guy parked out there with his one deer that he got, and he's making sure to tell all 20 people that were standing around, like, oh, hey, I got this guy right in here. And it was exciting for him, But yeah, just to think, that was a 115-ish acre piece of property, one deer in there, or one deer that anyone saw. So
it's just wild.
Yeah, it's crazy, especially with how much ag there is around there. And I don't know if they were just sitting really tight that day and had been already pressured, but
that's the thing about the Metro Parks properties is like, I've heard people say like, oh, this property sucks, I get a bad spot. But like when the place I got the one time, dude, I saw tons of deer. Yeah. It's just there, like, you're sitting over scrapes or whatever, or rubs. And I mean, I did get the buck that I was going after the whole season, but like I saw more deer there in the 2-week time slot I had. I think it was 2 or 4 week. I don't remember. I think it was 2 week. And I saw more deer in there than I'd saw in the last 5 years hunting on private property.
No kidding.
Like where you hunted with me in that time period. But I was out there since it was such a short window, I was out there like literally every day, like either morning or night, whenever I could get the time.
Kind of what you got to do sometimes. I mean,
well, I was shocked this year. I sat a lot for Gun Week in Ohio, and opening day is usually just like cannons ablaze, and it's just a shit show. I heard 2 gunshots until 10 a.m., and I was like, this is weird.
Yeah, it was actually, I came back from Pennsylvania early to opening day in Ohio, and I heard less than 10 shots in the first 7 hours. It was not normal, to say the least. And I don't know if it's because maybe more people are going out for archery season now, and, you know, they got their buck, or they got as many deer as they care to take already, or if it was just a slow day, because that's, you know, you'll have those. I mean, the weather's not cooperating, people aren't moving, people aren't shooting. The deer are just as happy to do what they do every other day of the year as they are, you know, opening day. Probably even more happy not to get shot at. So, I mean, it's...
Generally. Yeah. I mean, I feel like most living creatures are not wanting to get shot at as much as possible.
That's, I guess, a fair assumption.
The deer do like to get hit by cars, though, which is weird. They really do enjoy that. But, you know, I don't know. It's just like you have these high expectations every year, and then you go out there, you're like, oh God, this is not going the way I wanted it to.
You just kind of got to overcome that, though.
Yeah.
Because I think, I don't know, probably the first 2 seasons after I took a bit of hiatus from hunting, I saw deer and just managed to screw it up one way after another. And
that was me this year.
Yeah, it is what it is. But I guess it kind of made it more rewarding than when I finally, you know, figured it out again.
Well, it's one of those things. It's like you feel like you have it figured out because you are successful one season, and then the next season rolls around, and you're like, I don't know shit.
I don't know a thing.
Yeah.
I think that's the easiest way to screw up a deer hunt is to go in overconfident.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's exactly what happens sometimes is like, oh, well, I don't need to worry about this tiny little thing that I obsessed over last year.
Do you find that you're a lot more hesitant to shoot with a bow than with a gun?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just not confident in my yardage.
Yeah, I like the rangefinder. Well, that's kind of like why I got a single pin sight on my bow was I want to make sure that I'm shooting at the right distance and I'm not, you know, gapping the pins. And so I switched to a single pin, and then I realized that means I have to hit everything with my rangefinder before I take that shot. Otherwise, I'm not adjusting it for anything. And I think that kind of got in my head a little bit. And, but yeah, I mean, I've passed on bow shots that are, you know, chip shots, 15, 20 yards. And it was just because, like, it's just not turned perfectly. It doesn't look like that 3D target does. So I'm gonna hold back. Whereas with a gun, it's like, yeah, I'll bust through that shoulder blade, and that's nothing to worry about.
With the bow, though, it's like in my yard, I have like markers. This is 20 yards. This is 30 yards. This is 40 yards.
Yeah.
And when you're up in a tree, I luckily enough, there's a defunct telephone pole in my yard where I can put a climber on or something and just climb, or a saddle or whatever I'm shooting from.
Practice your angles.
And shoot from there too. And I do that. But when there's an actual deer there, 20 yards looks a lot like 40 yards.
Right.
And 40 yards looks a lot like 80 yards. And it's just like, all right. And yeah, like...
Maybe I don't know how to shoot that far.
That's... Yeah. Because I was like, a deer walked by at 40 yards. I mean, there's no way I could have taken the shot anyways because he was like moving. He wasn't running, but he was like trotting pretty good.
He had someplace to be, yeah.
Yeah. And so like, I wouldn't have made the shot regardless. But in my head, I was like, that's a 65-yard shot. And I range find it. It was like 35. And I was like... no way. Yeah. And I put a rock there and I went back up in the stand and looked at it. I was like, I could have made that shot.
I practice that shot every day. Yeah.
But your heart's racing and you're freaking out. 15 yards looks like 25. No. It's just...
Deer make people stupid.
Yeah.
Especially just make you dumb.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it is... I think that's the appeal though, is like it is so difficult and you have to just be confident and just like... Because... in my head, I constantly rehearse the shot all day when I'm out there. It's like, it's boring. There's no other way to put it. It's boring as shit to sit out there for that long.
You gotta do something, yeah.
So I'll like go through the step-by-step process of like, if this deer comes through this lane, this is how I'm going to shoot.
Right. This is how I'm going to take the bow down.
Yeah,
This is how I'm going to clip in. This is how, yeah.
And I'll do that over and over. But then the time comes and you're like, and it,
The deer didn't read the script.
Yeah,
It's
what
doing
do you-
something different.
what an asshole.
You're supposed to walk through that tree.
They never do. But
Jerks.
you know, it's just such a different ball game, and especially as someone like me who's relatively new. I mean, 5 and 6 years, I can't say I'm that new anymore, but it's still.
Yeah, you can still say.
I mean, I just don't have that confidence like a kid, like someone who had a kid like taken out as a kid, and you grew up like when you went through these nerves when you were like 8 and 12 and 15, whereas like I'm doing this at 33, you know. So it's like a whole different ball game. But the thing in the back of my head is like, once you let go of that, that's when the shit gets really hard. I mean, you gotta, if it wasn't a great shot, you gotta track. I mean, it's always in the back of your head, that hesitation, because like if I fuck this up, it's going to be it's going to turn from
day.
hiking back in at 6 to hiking back in at possibly 10, 11, and then you got to clean it and all that stuff, which it's part of hunting, but that's
For
always
sure.
sits in the back of your head. Like
Right.
you're out there by yourself, you're like, oh shit.
No, I think it was last year. I had probably 4 or 5 seasons of just success, just one shot dropped. Didn't have to worry about tracking because it didn't go 1 yard, let alone 20, you know, that type of thing. And on opening day, I had a shot at a doe about 150 yards away. I was hunting out of the saddle instead of a normal stand. And offhand shot. She went down, and I was like, cool, did it again. Start climbing down. She took off running. And I spent 8 hours tracking that deer about 2 miles back and forth around in circles until I finally found it. And that whole time, it's just nothing but regret, you know. Did everything, thought you did everything right. Confidence is gone after that first hour. Oh, I'm never going to find it.
Yeah.
You know, little spot here, little spot there. Just keep going. And
It's hard.
it ruins your day, and it ruins your mindset. And then, you know, there's that moment of elation then when you finally, you know, do find it. But there's, you know, just as many situations where it doesn't work out.
Yeah, tracking deer can be a pain in the ass. I've only had to track one. My first bow kill was actually like, he just fell over, and I was like, this is great, but I know it's not going to be
This
like
is
that
so
every
easy.
time. But one of the things that inhibits me a lot too in the back of my head is I only have permission to access one woodlot for tracking. Like I call the landowner every year, and I'm like, hey, I don't want to hunt here. I mean, I do want to hunt here, but I'm just like gonna just say like, can I come and if I shoot a deer and it runs in your woods, can I track it? And they always say yes. I can't get a hold of the person that owns the other woodlot, or I would try and do the same thing. But they're always like, every year, one of the people in that woodlot always walks over while I'm
Just
hunting, and
somehow
like
wander over there.
they just happen to like wander onto private property, which is like,
How'd that happen?
yeah, I
If only there was a 200-yard buffer between our properties.
Oh, you just happen to walk across a 200 acres
Right.
of field on accident. Yeah.
Oh.
But that really does annoy the crap out of me. Because like if it's one thing if they were like, hey, let's team up and work together and maybe drive some deer across all these properties and stuff. Like we all have a chance, but they're just like wandering into your property too, which is very frustrating.
It is. It is. Especially like if there's no fence, and then you're just arguing with them. You're like, I know exactly where I am. I have a GPS. But yeah, it is what it is. It's dealing with trespassers is always a interesting situation.
Well, you just had to do that recently with some little Amish kids, didn't you?
Yeah, every year it's something different. 'Cause my grandparents are really nice. They let their neighbors come in and hunt. It's pretty much just ask us permission, you know, let us know when you're going to be back there. They don't really care so long as, you know, people are following their very simple rules, which is like, don't bait. Doesn't seem outlandish, you know, ask.
Simple.
And if you get something, just let us know. Like they don't expect anything in return, you know. It's 150-ish acres, I think. Surrounded by another 3,000 acres that other people own. And yeah, it's just, you know, have the common courtesy. And, you know, this opening day of gun season, there were 2 Amish who happened to set up right inside the property line in a blind. And it's like, hey, how you guys doing? And they're like, oh, good. You seeing anything? Yeah, trespassers. Oh, no, we can be back here. It's like, you might be able to be back here, but you're shooting into the neighbor's property. Can you be back there too? And, it is, it's just frustrating to say the least. A couple of years before that, there was a young man who had set up a feeder and a camera and a stand and then, argued with me about whose property it was. And it's like, we're not cousins. Like,
Yeah.
this isn't your grandparents' property.
Yeah.
I've never seen you before. And I don't know. There's the polite way to handle it, which is like, hey, go get a permission slip. I won't give you a hard time if you have a permission slip. And there's more assertive ways to deal with it, which I've had to imply in the past, but it's usually just telling them to leave and not come back.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's always the tenuous part is like, we're both holding guns. This is very strange.
Right.
And
This is
awkward.
uncomfortable.
Well, I was telling you and Parker in the car, I was like, I could see how like out west people shot each other all the time.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It gets, you're just like mad as shit. And you're
Yeah.
like, and like you obviously, I'm not going to shoot anybody, but like you could see where that thought process comes in. Like, you son of a bitch.
No, and every time it's one of those situations where it's like, I'm going to walk away now, and I'm just trusting that you don't shoot me as I'm walking away.
Yeah.
And please don't. Please don't.
Do you prefer to hunt on the ground or in a stand?
I'm in a stand until the sun comes up kind of guy.
Okay. Fair. Yeah, you like to move.
I can't sit still. Yeah. I can sit in the duck blind, but a deer stand is just painful. I've done all day sits plenty of times, but when you start like trying to memorize how many lines of bark there are on that fleck, that's the only way to keep your mind occupied. It's just not for me. So
Yeah.
I like to go sneaky and play the wind and the thermals and just still hunt. Seem to have more success that way anyway.
Yeah.
At the same time, the biggest deer I ever shot was while I was sitting in a blind with a buddy heater at my feet. So maybe we defined success different.
They didn't care about the giant sound that a buddy heater makes.
No, not one bit.
That's wild to me.
Yeah, it's outrageous sometimes. You spend all that time and money on scent control and making sure your wind's right, and it doesn't matter. You're blowing propane vapor and just, it works.
I would say one of the things that I've found that I love the most is, we'll start with what I hate. I hate the stools. Those things suck ass.
The tripods,
They hurt your ass. You
They're-
can't sit on them for very long.
Yeah, they're not designed for adults.
They're even the fold out ones that are like scissor, like X shaped. Those those suck. I hate those.
Yeah, not so much.
I will say I love the saddle. You kind of introduced me a saddle. Like, you gave me the equipment I needed to get started, which I still got to give you your harness back.
Yeah, that's okay.
But you gave me the stuff that I needed. I kind of like built my own, and I really like it. I think it's so much more comfortable. I've sat in it for 4 hours, and I did not get.
Definitely more versatile.
Yeah.
I mean, you can put yourself in places you can't get up there with a climber. You're not going to haul sticks and do a hang on, and certainly not a ladder stand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice, 11 pounds of gear and you can get yourself 20 feet in a tree. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I personally think it's more of a bow hunting setup. I just can't get myself stable enough to take a shot with a shotgun or a rifle out of it. It is what it is.
I prefer to gun hunt from the ground, honestly. I know it's like, it's all personal preference, but I just feel like the range is so much further that I'm not as concerned on the ground.
That makes sense.
Like, and it's like hauling a gun up a tree just seems sketchy to me. I mean,
If
you
it's
don't load it.
unloaded,
Yeah,
it's-
obviously,
it's
but like,
unloaded. But yeah,
I don't know. Tree stands, I hate ladder stands. Like, I'll hunt from them if somebody's got them like installed permanently or something. I'll gladly do that. But like
Right.
the saddle, I'm a very, like, even right now, I'm like a very fidgety person. Like, I've been shaking and spinning this whole time.
it's the barbecue.
We just ate a shitload of barbecue before we came in here.
That's exactly what it is.
And shot guns, really big guns.
Yeah.
But that'll get your nerves going. But I don't know. I feel like I have so much more especially being that high in the air, like I feel like I have so much more ability to just like move. And if my back starts to get tight, I can lean back and like stretch out. And it just feels like you're sitting in like a sofa in the air.
No, I think it's a lot more comfortable.
Especially for bow hunting.
Yeah. Especially because, I mean, you think about it, like, you don't really, unless you're just a super focused person when it comes to practicing, you don't shoot a bow sitting down. You don't, you don't stand on a 2-foot platform and shoot it either. But at the same time, like, you're standing when you shoot your bow. It's more natural. It's more comfortable. And being able to, twist and turn and get those different angles, I think that really works out better.
Well, when I killed a deer with my bow from a climber, I was standing.
Right.
I wasn't sitting in it. Like, It's just so awkward to shoot and sit.
And I think that extra movement and, that chance of making a creak or a crack or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you're already standing, you're in your saddle. I mean, you just turn where you need to turn.
I just like how minimal it is. Like, you're literally having like a couple of ropes, and if you can afford the ultralight sticks, I mean, you're carrying essentially nothing. And the platform is like the size of 2 feet wide.
Yeah.
But it's not uncomfortable. And if you have knee pads, like I literally went to Walmart and bought like just shitty carpentry knee pads or something.
I had the Badlands ones for one season, wore those out, and I ended up grabbing the Heart ones from Walmart, the ones the tile guys wear.
Yeah.
And they've lasted twice as long at this point, and we're $10 less. But
my camera just died, so I guess that's a good indicator that the equipment doesn't want me to podcast anymore.
That's totally okay.
So before we get wrapped up here, man, anything that you're excited for coming up? I know the season's kind of dwindling down. I mean, there's still plenty of time left to hunt, but it's kind of like the tail end of the season. So
I think it's time to get after them geese. Start field hunting.
Yeah.
And, go lay in a empty cornfield in 2-degree weather and pretend like that's fun. That's what I'm excited for.
Well, I do have the goose blind now, so I'm excited to use that. You got the panel blind, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, got to take the vegan deer hunting. That's going to be a good time. And go get after some bunnies now that there's potentially going to be some snow on the ground. Who knows? There's just so much time for activities.
There's not nearly enough time for activities. But with that being said, man, I want to thank you. This has been a long podcast. I usually don't go this long, but it's been a fun time.
I have no perception of time.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, we're supposed to potentially go duck hunting tomorrow, so
we'll see.
Maybe. I got to figure out if I can make it work or not with my schedule.
Game warden. There's ice.
Yeah, the ice scenario is pretty brutal. If we do go hunting tomorrow, maybe I'll throw some of that footage in this podcast so they can see how terrible the ice is.
That works.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much.
Sure. Appreciate it.
I'll see you all the time, but people on this show probably won't. So.
That's fine.
You don't like it that way.
I was going to say I won't miss them.